down in the car. One time, give it all. Bust it open hard. Let me see you drop. Get down in the car. One time, give it all. Bust it open hard. Let me see you drop.
Music licensing reimagined.
I fucked up this hustle, day we hustle, but the oh my God. I fucked up this hustle, day we hustle, but the oh my God. Punish my guys, know that they fly, know that they ride or die.
Hey, good morning. Thank you for being on. This is Jared and Nate with the eCarrierCheck show. I'm super jacked. We've got some awesome topics to talk about with Dr. Mark here. But you know what I'm jacked about right now, though, Nate, is we have had just an incredible week, man. Yep. It's been just an insane week. We've had a lot of phone calls. We've been just grinding with people and really trying to help them grow their business. Yep. You know, give me a rundown, man. Like, you've been on the phone every day, all day, every hour. Give me a rundown. Give me a rundown. Like, what are some of the topics people are talking to you about?
Yeah, honestly, you know, just how to get their business going. That's what it seems to be this week. You know, people trying to kind of dabble in this industry. Hey, Tire Killer, thanks for being here, man. Always number one there. But yeah, trying to get their business going. Just figuring out what's the best way. You know, obviously we talk about how it's a downturn in the market right now. It's hard to kind of get it going, but people still want to come into the industry and try to start a, you know, maybe new way of living.
Yeah.
Maybe they're tired of their job they've got going on now and they want to dabble in this industry.
Yeah. So. You know, and from a news standpoint, it's been a weird week. Obviously, YRC potentially filing bankruptcy Monday, UPS signing their union deal. Hopefully that'll go through here this week. You know, a lot of reports are coming out from carriers and brokers of where they're at year over year. But today we're talking about health. We have got Dr. Mark on. Dude, I am so jacked for you to be here. Thanks for being on, Mark.
Yeah, Nate, Jared, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited for the conversation.
Yeah.
So give us a background. You know, obviously, you know, you're a health expert. You're really trying to bring up, you know, life here when it comes to drivers, when it comes to just fitness and eating healthy. I was on your website yesterday, really clean. I loved it, by the way.
Thank you.
But, you know, give us a rundown. Where are we at as an industry when it comes to health specific to drivers?
Yeah, man, it's sad. It's sad. And it's honestly one of the reasons why I got into all of this in the first place, because, you know, I guess to kind of tell a little background really quick of 3.5 years ago, I didn't know anyone in trucking and transportation, was not in the industry at all, grew up with a family of both my parents are eye doctors, optometrists, and no one was in the supply chain, trucking, logistics world at all. You know, obviously I knew what a truck driver was, and, you know, it was one of those things of, you know, we give them some distance on the highway because they're kind of big, scary vehicles. But outside of that, I didn't know anything about trucking. Right. And I went down the traditional path of becoming a physical therapist, was going through grad school. I'm in St. Louis, Missouri, so I was in a small school called Maryville University, going through PT school, and was on a clinical rotation in this super small town south of St. Louis called Bonne Terre. One of those things where you're driving on the highway, you blink and you miss the whole town. And I'm working in just this outpatient physical therapy clinic, and in walks a bunch of truck drivers. And that was my real first experience getting to know drivers on a personal level, and honestly, just seeing firsthand what 20-30 years behind the wheel can do to someone's health. And it threw me down this rabbit hole. And you kind of bringing it back to kind of the current state of drivers' health is kind of what I spent hours and hours digging into, and just kind of unpeeling, you know, the layers of the onion, and just kind of every single stat I read as I read down, you know, went down this list, my eyes just kept getting bigger and bigger, because you're seeing things of like, you know, 70% of truck drivers are obese, highest rates of diabetes and obesity among any other occupation in the whole United States. Their life expectancy is 16 years less than the average population. And it's just like, yeah, it's like I'm coming from the, you know, outside in, and I'm sitting here like, holy crap. Like, you know, honestly, for me and my perspective as a healthcare provider, I don't think anyone's career should define their health. But, you know, as I'm reading this and I'm working with the people hands-on, literally hands-on in the clinic, working with dozens of drivers, I'm like, I'm seeing it firsthand of exactly that happening. And as I dug deeper into it, it really felt as though there was no solutions out in the marketplace or coming in the industry that actually met drivers where they were at. There was a lot of things, and as I get deeper into the industry, I'm realizing that this is a little bit of a trend of it's painted on that it's built for drivers, but it's kind of just something that's taken for the office staff, or taken from, just kind of used from the past and respun in a different direction, right? And so I really felt as though there was a huge gap in the market and in the industry as a whole, and there was tons of drivers that I was, my first thing was going into the wild west of trucking Facebook groups. And as someone who is not from the trucking industry, man, it was kind of like what is it? As like a junior high school kid, you go on like Urban Dictionary and you're like reading all these definitions of like all these like nasty words, and you're like, what the heck is a St. Louis whatever? But it's like that same experience of me going into these trucking groups, and I'm like, what is this? These people are wild, and it's just a different type of different type of person. And they've actually become some of my best friends. Earlier this year, my wife and I attended 2 of our members at Supply Chain Fitness, their wedding, and we were 2 of 30 people at their wedding. And it was just like one of those surreal moments of like the types of friendships that I've built just in the last couple of years, of really just coming in and meeting people where they're at, treating drivers like you and I should be treating every other human, and getting to know them on a personal level. And it's been a really amazing ride. And I think I kind of just hijacked that whole question. But at the end of the day, that the current state of drivers' health is really sad. And there's a lot of drivers who know it's a problem and they need the help. But really, it's a combination of this mental bandwidth, lack of mental bandwidth, lack of time, that then spirals into the lack of resources and this unique lifestyle they live. And they get stuck in this vicious cycle that's really difficult to get out of, unless you have someone who is holding your hand at times and also shoving you at the same time, depending on the type of the relationship that person needs.
Yeah. It's interesting. And Tire Killer brings up an interesting point. The type of freight or the type of trailer you have, obviously is going to specify if you're in a van, you're really not getting out of your truck. If you're in a flatbed, at least you're out, chaining it down or tarping it or anything like that. I got to tell you, this is kind of funny. When I got into the industry, I didn't come from freight. I started in 2008. Facebook was just kind of getting popular. I'm more of a MySpace kind of guy. Let's be honest. Look at the gray in the beard. It's fine. I'll admit it. But one of the first groups that Nate and I joined, so we got into eCarrierCheck. It's a bootstrap company. We're a sourcing platform and really trying to help people build relationships with shippers, brokers, and carriers, right? And I was like, let's immerse ourselves. Let's go in and start to, join some Facebook groups like you mentioned just now. And one of the first ones I watch is a driver that has a deep fat fryer in his sleeper.
Oh my God.
And he's literally deep fat frying right in his sleeper. And I'm like, what is going on? What are we watching? And then I was like, you know what? That's probably not a terrible thing to deep fat fry Oreos. And that's what he was eating. Yeah. And this was some driver he was putting on, 3,500 miles a week, just deep fat frying Oreos on a Tuesday night going live on it. I was like, this is what we're dealing with, right?
First off, I've had deep fried Oreos at Holiday World like 10 plus years ago, and it almost made me puke. It was just like too rich.
It's too much.
I have a sweet tooth. I eat ice cream. I eat all the sweets. One of the worst parts of it being the health guy is whenever you're at a conference, people you start walking over, you're talking, and they have a beer, they've got food, and then you suddenly see them lean away from you when they're taking a bite because they're subconscious because you're the health guy and they're eating in front of you. And come on, people. My whole thing is you gotta, you don't have to hate your life to live a healthy one. There's a balancing act here. But no, I mean, the Facebook groups are crazy, man. And there's a lot of people on there that are super knowledgeable, and I've leveraged that of when I go in there and I have a question, I'm like, hey, well, I've even done this. I'm looking for a bunch of drivers to call on the phone and ask some questions. And, you get some people who are get a life, dude. But you also have a ton of people who are yeah, send me a message and I'd love to talk. And I've actually created some great friendships from that, just doing that.
Yeah, so Nate and I were looking at now obviously we couldn't log into your app, but we were looking at, the things that you have on your website. And it's so interesting because, at a certain point, drivers are dealing with, truck stop food, right? Truck stop restaurants, right? Looks like Tire Killer's wife cooks for him, so he's doing fine. Which I love that, by the way. You got a great wife there. Hold on to her. But you've got it's challenging, right? You're sitting all day, you're eating crazy food. But you know what I love about what you do, and I would love for you to talk more about this, is you're like, eat this, but don't eat this if you're going to Burger King. And you had a little Burger King little picture on there.
Yeah.
And like, sign me up. Like, this guy is trying to help people change their habits and have a healthier lifestyle. And I love what you're doing. Tell us more about the app and tell us kind of what your world does, man. I'd love to hear.
Yeah, well, and I think kind of the first overall thing is that the mindset around what we're doing, especially when you're a driver, the fact is that these people keep a roof over their family's head, put food on their table from sitting for 11 to 13 hours a day behind the wheel. And coming in from a health perspective, and I agree with you that the sedentary lifestyle is a tough barrier to go over, but coming in and just going straight down on them about the fact that they sit all day is not helpful for anyone.
Right.
How is that a beneficial, like,
Right.
That is not meeting people where they're at. That is not showing empathy and understanding their lifestyle. And it's honestly just, it's kind of one of those things of like, when people just talk over someone and they just like think they know the answer. It's like having that same type of energy. And so everything that we've built in supply chain fitness and worked around in the programming and the coaching has been about, there are a lot of things that are difficult about the lifestyle of a driver out on the road. But at every single turn, at every single moment, at every single truck stop, fast food restaurant, there is a healthier option that you can choose. And so instead of grabbing the Big Mac, large fries, a large Coke, here's the healthiest option at McDonald's. And I just deep in my soul believe that if a driver every single day doesn't take any extra time, it just says, instead of getting a number 1, I'd like a number 4. Or instead of going down this aisle at TA, I'm going to go down this aisle and grab a healthier snack. If they do that consistently for 20 years, day after day, you are looking at 2 completely different people at the end of this career. And the one who made that healthier choice is thriving. They're probably not worried about their next DOT physical coming up. They're not worried about that health condition is going to take them out of the truck, or they're not worried that they're not going to be able to enjoy the fruits of their labor with their grandkids or family or wife that they've been sacrificing, because there are a lot of sacrifices that come with the lifestyle of a driver. And so that is the whole point of what we're trying to do. And our 3 big pillars are exercise, nutrition, and accountability. And so from an exercise standpoint, we help drivers be more physically active. We've got stuff. Our most popular program is in the back of their truck, because we have, and I'll tell you, this came from a Facebook group. Actually, Blake, one of our first demo members, she literally texted me this morning, say, "Hey, we haven't talked in a while. Let's grab coffee." She's in St. Louis as well. And so, yeah, we were on a demo, and at the start, I was like, okay, hey, we're going to get everyone out doing a workout in, a workout outside of their truck. It's going to be great. And we get on the phone, and she's like, hey, so I don't feel really comfortable working out outside of my truck because all these truck drivers are just staring at me. And then it was also not safe for me to be outside of the truck at this one location. Is there any way we can do something in my truck? And I was like, yeah, let's try it. Right. And so we put something together, and, one thing turned to another, and we kind of iterated, and it's become our most popular program of doing stretching or circuit-based exercises in the back of their truck. We've got video and written instructions on exactly what to do. And, we also have different programs. So you can do it inside your truck, outside your truck, or at home. And we also have different types of exercise routines, from stretching to circuit-based to just some resistance-based exercise. And then we also have, coming back to that lack of time, that is a big barrier. And so we've got stuff they can do in 5 minutes or less, 10 minutes, or we found 20 minutes being a sweet spot there from an exercise standpoint. And then from a nutrition standpoint, I think it kind of goes back to that whole, mindset I talked about earlier. But I just don't believe that handing someone a meal plan and saying flip your whole life 180 degrees tomorrow is doing anything other than setting them up to hold on for dear life for about a week and then fall off and feel like a failure. And there's so many people that I talk to that have been on off 20, 25, 30 different times in their last 20 years of their adult life. And it just continues to add this big barrier or pillar that just makes trying to live a healthier life more and more difficult. And so what we do is we take a habit-based approach and really start with like some of the smallest behavior changes that you can even think of to build up those small wins. And the goal is that we build it from day one into something that you can consistently see yourself doing for the rest of your life. Because this whole game of health is not about where you're going to be in 30 days and 60 days. It's about how can you create a lifestyle that you can do, still enjoy yourself. If a deep fried Oreo comes up, I'm not saying don't bite that, but where, what I'm saying, what you can do, and you can still be doing it, 20 years from today, and you're building on top of it because you're seeing the momentum, you're feeling better, you're feeling more energized, you're getting towards your health goals, and you're not dreading the fact that you're restricting yourself or you can't eat this, you can't eat that, because that's just, what's the point of that, right? I'm going to eat ice cream because I love ice cream. I'm not going to eat it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but I'm not going to eat a whole pint of Ben and Jerry's. But the combination of moderation and enjoying myself keeps me motivated to do other things about being healthy in my life as well. And then, that final aspect of accountability is honestly where I think the glue is, and it's the magic of the coaching relationship. Every person starts with a one-on-one onboarding call with a coach. Then we do weekly check-in text messages based off of their utilization in the program. And then through our app, they also have 24/7 access to ask any questions, reach out to a coach, and we'll answer that as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. One of the things I love about what you do is how you meet them where they're at. That's huge. Everyone, in my opinion, everyone has their own story. Yeah. And that's important to kind of just meet them where they're at, no pressure, right? But you took the words out of my mouth. I was gonna ask you what kind of support, because for speaking for me, accountability I struggle with. So having that coach help you hold that accountability, and I love that you guys provide that. That's huge.
Yeah. And you mentioned something, just to kind of rewind real quick, and I'm sure you've looked at this before, is, those people that have gone off and on diets for 20 years, that almost may be more harmful, or what's the effect of that on and off again function of going on diets like that? Is it just, it's got to mess with you mentally? Oh, I suck at these things. Mm-hmm. It's kind of just mess with you in a sense, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think it kind of goes back, I don't think it's harmful from like a actual like body standpoint or anything like that. It's much more just a mental barrier. Yeah. And it's kind of a, the way we look at ourselves, and, it's kind of one of those things, from every time you feel like you failed, or you set yourself up and you're like, I'm going to do this, but then you drop off, it kind of has this like subconscious impact on I'm not good enough, I can't do this. And it's like, man, that really sucks that you feel that way, because you set yourself up, or, these diets or these fad diets set you up to fail from the get-go, because they're unrealistic and they're not sustainable. And that's for anyone. Yeah. When you add trucking into the equation, it like multiplies that, right? And it's just so much more difficult. And so I just, part of the onboarding process is like breaking that feeling down of saying, hey, I get it, but you really we're trying to do too much, and we really need to set smaller goals and smaller expectations, and understand that you're going to have some wins, you're going to have some losses here, and it's all part of the journey of becoming a healthier version of yourself.
Yeah, for sure. Dr. Manera, as I'm drinking an energy drink here, we actually had a question. Yeah. What's your opinion on energy drinks? Obviously, drivers, like you said, are in their truck 11 to 13 hours a day. What's your thoughts on energy drink and caffeine for those drivers?
Yeah, there's actually some really interesting research that they put out, and I don't have I won't even try to pretend I know the numbers off the top of my head, but they were talking about how actually there was a certain level of caffeine intake that actually they showed increased safety of less fatigue behind the wheel. And it was actually could be used as a tool for drivers of, just like that person said, of, keeping them engaged and focused on the road. And obviously there's an overdoing it. And I think there's also some people, it depends. I know some people who have more energy than, the Energizer Bunny and have never drank coffee in their life, right? It all depends. And so what I would say from an energy drink perspective is I think one of the biggest opportunities for drivers to, I look at low-hanging fruit opportunities from a health standpoint. And I think there's so many drivers who drink so many calories and so many grams of sugar just all day, sipping on Pepsi, sipping on some energy drinks. And so what I would recommend is, I'm not saying don't drink your energy drinks, but find energy drinks that are 0 or low calorie or have little sugar. And so, I know there's some zero. There you go.
I think I'm good.
There we go. So go for it. I'm not going to tell you. I'm not the expert in the.
Yeah.
I'm not the expert in the world of how much caffeine's too much caffeine. What I'd say is in general is what I'd say in general is that if you are struggling to sleep at night because you're just too amped up, maybe stop drinking caffeine about 6 hours before you go to bed, because that's the half-life of caffeine in your body. And so that could be an opportunity there to improve your sleep. But in general, I try to stay, nothing wrong with under 4 or 5, servings of a caffeine coffee or caffeine drink in a day. If you're drinking 12 Bang Energies, maybe you need to cut down something, or maybe drink a little bit more water or something. But in general, I'm cool with it.
God, I tell you what, though, if you go to the truck stop, and I walk down the line, and sometimes I just don't want to drink water. For the love of God, you can only drink so much water. There's no taste. I just want some grape flavor or something like that. But they look so cool. All these energy drinks look amazing. The guy that invented Liquid Death is probably my favorite. He just said, I'm going to market this better than anyone else. And he is selling water to humans. I love that this guy is doing this. But I love that. I'm a big fan of you talking about that. Find that 0 sugar. Nick.
And from a water standpoint, try sparkling water. Some people like it, some people don't like it. I'm not the biggest fan. I don't really. If I do sparkling water, I need it sweetened in a way. So there's some that are sweetened with like stevia or something like that, and I love that. Or water enhancers, right? You like the Mios or something like that. I'm drinking that right now. 0 calorie. I added to my water. It's fruit punch flavor, and it tastes great. Right there, you go.
I need it.
I love that. Yeah. I love that. Ryan, real quick while we're on this, is it true that Bang energy drinks can cure Alzheimer's? I love that he says this. That's so funny. Did you see this? I know they go out of business, but I think they actually claim this on the back of their can that they cured Alzheimer's. Yeah. I don't know if you saw this or not.
I'm going to refer to the experts on the Alzheimer's. I think there's a lot with my education in physical therapy. We rehab people with Alzheimer's. We don't cure Alzheimer's, and I don't believe there is a cure of Alzheimer's. That being said, but okay, go for it. Yeah.
So Nick actually was on our show a couple weeks ago. I got to tell you about this cat. He's really just an energized guy. He goes into companies. In fact, he gives us, or we get our health insurance from him. But he has, essentially health insurance plans. He's always just challenging status quo when it comes to health insurance. And I love this guy. He's very outside of the box. Obviously, how can an HR team, executive team of larger trucking companies leverage your program to enhance the overall health of their entire population? I love this question, Nick. You kind of set it up. We're putting it on a tee for you. This is what he does, and this is what you're going to do. So give us a rundown. How do people actually use your product? What's the sales process here?
So our focus when we go into larger trucking companies, especially the companies who are, in that 300, 400 above employer range, where they're thinking about becoming self-insured. And so do you guys know what self-insured means on the health insurance side of things? Okay. So basically for the people watching, the smaller companies, the companies that have maybe 3 or 4 people, they go to Blue Cross Blue Shield, they go to United, they go to Aetna, and they get a health insurance plan for the company there. But once you get up to a certain amount, a couple hundred employees, thousands of employees, it becomes really expensive to go knock on and get a health insurance plan like that. And the budget on the bottom line becomes a really big part of it. And so companies can become self-insured, which means that they spread all the risk of health insurance claims and hospitalizations and just health claims in general across their whole organization, because they have a large enough employer base to be able to do that. And so with that, when you look at some of the largest expenses for just health insurance in general, 86% of all healthcare costs in the United States are directly associated to chronic diseases. So we're talking about diabetes, we're talking about heart disease, we're talking about obesity. And obviously there's a longer list there, but those are some of those
What was the percentage again?
86%.
Boom. That's huge.
It's like ridiculous.
Oh, sorry. That's insane.
It's ridiculous. And there's 133 million Americans who have a chronic disease today. And unfortunately, that's only growing. And, obviously I mentioned earlier in industries like trucking or some of these other more blue collar industrial industries, the rates of these chronic diseases are higher in general. And so trucking has the highest rate of obesity and diabetes among any other occupation in the United States. And so these large trucking companies are spending millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars on healthcare costs for these chronic diseases that can be controlled, reversed, or prevented through lifestyle-based programming. And so our focus is coming in, and right now we're really on the pre-diabetes weight management side of things, and cutting down and helping these employers manage the large percentage of their organization who are pre-diabetic or need to lose weight, be able to cut down. And the goal, and when you look at some of the CDC measurements, the goal is losing 5 to 7% of their body weight and helping them move for 150 minutes a week, be more physically active. And if we can check both of those boxes, if someone's pre-diabetic, there's like a 58% reduction in their risk of becoming type 2 diabetic. And so that is what we go in and we're focused on, because there's a strong ROI there of, even if we can make a single digit change
1%.
to these companies' bottom line, we're talking about millions of dollars. And so I use the example, there was a large, I won't throw the carrier's name out there because I just want to, be respectful to them, but there's a large carrier that has about 7,000 drivers. And I was talking to the CEO of it a couple of weeks ago, and he was saying that every single year for the 7,000 drivers in their fleet, they were spending $110 million on healthcare costs. And they were begging for a digital health company or a company to come in and just make a single digit change. And so that's kind of the focus here and what we're building in. And the goal is to really focus and move towards those chronic disease management and really build something specific for drivers and just this sector in general.
Yeah, that's insane. I love that you're on this mission. It's such a great mission. Yeah. Tire Killer Brian asks an interesting question. And I would actually be curious. I don't know if you know this, but how many people know how to read a label on a food? Or I know that the restaurants are now starting to show how many calories. If you order number one, it's 1,800 freaking calories, whatever it is, right? Which is nuts, by the way. There was a couple we were looking them up. Do you remember this when we were looking them up? It's like Burger King, the biggest one they had was like 2,750, and it was like
holy crap,
crazy. And I was like, oh my gosh, we're getting into it. But I mean, this is an interesting question, because I don't know how many people really know how to read the nutritional facts on a can, on a thing, or what's the no-go? What should they be eating?
So specifically answering that question of like the list of no and good and bad foods. Is that what you would like me to go? Yeah, cool. So here's my principle. I don't think there is a good food. I don't think there is a bad food. I think there are foods that we should probably eat more of. There's some foods that we should eat sometimes, and there's some foods that we should probably eat less of. And every food ends up on the spectrum somewhere. And so on this end, you have the foods that we should probably eat less of. we're talking about the fried Oreos, we're talking about the pints of Ben and Jerry's, right? And then you've got foods over here that you should eat more of, right? And so we're talking about fruits, vegetables, lean proteins, whole grain, like all of the things that we all know we should be eating more of. I don't think that's explained. And I think there's a lot of foods that end up somewhere in the middle here. And so what I just don't like, I don't think in general when it comes to health, putting hard labels on anything is that great. I think that if someone does that, they don't understand that the world is gray and that there's so, again, it comes back to that you don't have to hate your life to live a healthy one. Eat a freaking, a deep fried Oreo, eat some dessert, don't, do that. But in general, most of your diet should be coming from, fruits, vegetables, lean proteins, whole grains, and that's the goal, right? And so how I look at it, and it kind of goes back to that whole, finding the healthiest option anywhere you go out on the road, is most foods that people are eating end up somewhere in this spectrum. And so for us, it's like, how can we help a driver, instead of picking a food that's on this end of the spectrum, pick a food that's on this end of the spectrum? It might not be all the way on the end of this spectrum of, you're eating this perfect diet and it's amazing, but 1%, 2%, 3% healthier done day after day, I mean, makes a huge impact. And that's the focus. And I'm sorry, I know people want these like super hard, eat this, don't eat this, and like strong things, but that's just not how life works. That's not how your body works. That's not how health works.
Sure. Yeah,
and I think it's a positive.
Yeah, we had a driver, when I first started in trucking, I worked for a fairly large company. They had, 100 plus drivers. And, it was always interesting when you talk to the guys that were over the road, because I worked for an LTL company. So these guys are coming in the morning, being home at night. But the guys that were over the road, it was so interesting. I would ask him, hey, how are things? How's your health? How's life? And he's like, when I get off the road, I'm going to start a diet. And I'm like, somehow or another, you don't have to wait to get out of the truck in order to make the right choices, right?
Yeah, so
this thing.
It comes back to this, right? It's like people say all the time, well, right now is not the best time. And it's like, okay, you want to start this diet, right? So you are going to start this diet when it's the easiest possible to start this diet. And is the goal of you being healthier, living healthier, that you do this for the rest of your life? And then they say, yes, I want to do this for the rest of my life. It's like, okay, so do you think that your life is going to be easy at all times? Or you think there will ever be times in your life where it does get more challenging? And they say, yeah, there definitely will be. It's like, okay, so is the variable of you don't have the time or it's a difficult part of your life actually a barrier, or is it something that you're going to have to figure out how to live and work around being healthier because you want to be a healthier person? That is a principle you're trying to establish in your life. And so wouldn't it be awesome to actually establish that principle when it is difficult or your life has that lack of barrier? So when you do have those down points where life kind of calms down and it's easier, you're like, holy crap, man, this is awesome. I can ride right now. And then when it ramps back up, you're like, oh, been there, done that. This is where I came from. I know what's going on here. I'm not going to let this fall off. And so that is what I'd respond back to that person, because it's kind of like one of those things of like starting a business, right? When the time is right. Well, dude, there's not really any right time. There's always going to be crap happening in the world and in your life. And it's like, if you want this to be a part of your life, you just kind of have to make it happen. And obviously there are life events that get in the way and there are serious things that happen. But in general, life is always busy. You're never going to not be busy. And probably the best time was to start it 20 years ago, but the second best time to start it was like today.
Right now.
For sure. Nick, you're bringing the house today, man. I love this question. So, Dr. Manera, do you see the industry starting to take notice enough to see truck stops having exercise areas? Are there resources to help drivers find places to exercise, specifically that they can easily access their daily driver?
And to add on to the exercise aspect, the same thing. Are you seeing any trends where it's becoming easier to get medical attention or at least quick care concept? Are you seeing anything in that regards where drivers have better access or easier access to, they don't have to damn drop their trailer and head into town and go to quick care. Walk us through that. What are the trends you're seeing?
Okay, so number one, we are at the highest peak of telehealth we've ever been at in the world. Every single day, amazing digital health solutions are coming out, and there's more access today than there was yesterday or 2 years ago or 20 years ago for drivers just on their cell phone every single day. And like so many things can be either done through a televisit or at least from talking to a doctor or a nurse or a nurse practitioner, they can be able to go through the prompting or ask him a question and say, hey, Nate, you should probably go see someone in person, or hey, I think actually this is what's going on. I'll write you a prescription and get it delivered, or you can pick it up whenever you get home, or just start doing this. It's not that big of a deal. And there's so many things that can be figured out from just a conversation with a doctor. And that like back and forth, asking questions and hearing their responses, hearing a driver's responses, just through televisits. That being said, there are some there's a company called Interstate Health that I'm a big fan of. Jeff, their CEO, and what they're doing. They're building out some facilities that have access to truck parking all around the country. And so I'm excited to be able to refer some of our members to those locations, and it'll be really exciting there. But I think coming back to Nick's question, and I think this kind of comes back in general to the problem of health around our whole country, and this is not drivers. I don't think that the problem is a lack of gyms or access to a gym. That, to me, I've seen some truck stop gyms. I've seen some hotel gyms. They're not typically they're there, but they're not really getting utilized. And just from talking to drivers in general, I will tell you that a lot of drivers that we work with, even if there was a gym, would be too from a self-esteem problem, or like it kind of goes back to that. They don't want people staring at them. They feel like they need to do it in their own privacy because they're on their own journey. And so that's why we focus on, making their truck a gym and doing stuff that they can do anywhere at any time. If they're up in Winnipeg in December and it's negative 30 degrees outside, they're not worried about getting outside the truck and trying to exercise. They can do it right inside of their truck. Or if they're, in St. Louis right now and, it's 100 degrees outside, or maybe 100 degrees is too aggressive, but it's nice and sunny outside. You want some fresh air, right? You can get outside and maybe you parked at a place where you do feel safe and comfortable, and you can get outside and do some exercises or go for a walk. But to me, I don't think the issue on the exercise standpoint is the lack of gyms. I will say there is some more validity on that end from a lack of healthy food options out on the road. But to me, when you go to the truck stop, there are tons of healthier options that people just end up grabbing the Snickers bar instead of. It's again not as much of a lack of it not being there as a decision or accountability around grabbing that food.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh, Mark, you really have brought the house today, man. I can't thank you enough. You've brought so much value. You're bringing value to companies. How do people get in touch with you? If you're a smaller company, is there something that you can do to help them?
Yeah.
Give us a rundown. How do people find you? How do people get in touch with you and go from there?
Yeah, so we work with all sizes of companies. I think our sweet spot is probably 50, 75 trucks and up. But we've worked with some smaller companies that are below that as well. And you can find us at supplychainfitness.com, Supply Chain Fitness on every social media, or if you're on LinkedIn, look up Dr. Mark Manera as well.
That's awesome, man. I love that. You are insane. Wonderful to have you on. I love your energy. I'm excited to see what you do and change the world. Yeah. The old saying, an apple day keeps the doctor away, and you're doing it.
There you go. Thank you.
You're really a blessing to this industry, man. I can't wait to watch, you and Supply Chain Fitness grow. We'll definitely get you back on the show, maybe 6 months to kind of see where you're at, see how things are going. Can't wait to watch you grow, man. Yeah. Thanks again for your time. you definitely brought a lot of value today.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
absolutely.
appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me on as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we close out, obviously we're, Nate, you manage eCarrierCheck on a day-to-day basis. We're a sourcing platform. How do people get in touch with eCarrierCheck? And give us a rundown real quick.
Yeah, if you look in the description, you'll see our contact information, a website link to Dr. Manera's channel there. But give us a call. Let us know how we can help you either grow your company or maybe help you get a little bit healthier, right? We're growing connections with people like Dr. Mark Manera here. So, we're trying to bring as much value to everyone as we can. But yeah, so reach out to us. We'd love to hear your story, your journey, and see how we can help you.
I love it.
Yeah.
Have a great Friday. Mark, you're the man. Thanks.